Court is back in session for another episode of Tony's Takes presented by Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Tony, Anthony_Rivardo on Twitter. If you want to give me a follow, much appreciated. And today we have a pretty special topic on the line, talking about Freddie Kitchens being promoted this offseason. This is a move that Joe Judge made that not a lot of people are talking about, and I think it's super underrated. I think this is a huge move that the Giants have made on their coaching staff, and like I said, no one's talking about it, and I wonder why that is. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and talk about it. This is a move that I think can have major impacts on Daniel Jones, the offensive play calling, Jason Garrett, and even the offensive line for a reason that I'll get into, a very specific reason as well. So let's get into that. But before we do, shout out to Allison, one of our great members. Thank you so much, Allison, for suggesting this video topic idea. And thank you so much for being a member and giving us all of your love and support. We greatly appreciate it. If anyone else is interested in becoming a member, you will have the ability to give me topics to record about on Tony's Takes. So check it out in the description down below. See if you want to join. Got a lot of great perks for you guys and try to make it worth your while. So go ahead and consider that, and let's get into this video. So talking about Freddie Kitchens and his promotion. Back last offseason, 2020, Joe Judge was hired as the head coach of the New York Giants. As many of you know, I claim to be the leader of the Joe Judge fan club. I'm wearing the Joe Judge jersey on me right now. I love Joe Judge to the moon and back. He is my king, and I can't wait to see how his long career with the Giants goes. And so he hired Freddie Kitchens, former head coach of the Cleveland Browns, to be the tight ends coach for the Giants in 2020. As the tight ends coach of the Giants in 2020, the tight ends were not as good as they should have been, right? Evan Engram didn't really perform. He did make his first Pro Bowl, but as we all know, he dropped 11 passes. He really didn't play his best brand of football. But was that more on Freddie Kitchens, or was that more on Jason Garrett and not using Evan Engram in the proper way? Personally, I feel like that was Jason Garrett's fault. Jason Garrett was having Evan Engram run a lot of 5-yard hook routes, just kind of sitting in the middle of the field playing that stick route, that kind of thing. And I don't think that's Evan Engram's strong suit. I think that's Kyle Rudolph's strong suit. Just did a video kind of detailing this on the last episode of Tony's Takes, or 2 episodes ago. Talking about how Kyle Rudolph is going to alleviate a lot of the problems of Evan Engram, because Evan Engram is supposed to get vertical, be that quick tight end, go downfield and be that receiver. And they were using him in more of that, underneath intermediate pass catcher role, which really isn't Evan Engram's strong suit. So I blame that more on Jason Garrett, and I actually do commend Freddie Kitchens for working with Evan Engram to improve his run blocking. Evan Engram's run blocking was very much improved this last season. Now, he's not elite in that category. It wasn't like tremendous run blocking, no George Kittle out there, but he was better than he was in the past. So I do give Freddie Kitchens some credit for that, and think he did a pretty good job in that regard. But this offseason, last year he was hired as a tight ends coach. This offseason, Joe Judge went ahead and gave him a promotion to senior offensive assistant. So now I think about that, and I think, what might he have done to earn that promotion? Of course, there's a whole lot behind the scenes that we don't see. He is a former head coach, but I think, you think back to that Cleveland Browns game. I believe that was week 15 or 14 when the Giants played at home against Cleveland Browns on a Monday night game. Jason Garrett had COVID. He was out, and he did not coach the offense, and he did not call the plays. Also, Daniel Jones was out in that game. He was injured. So with our backup quarterback in there, Freddie Kitchens had to try and lead this offense. The Giants did lose this game, and the offense did not do enough and did not score enough points, but there was something interesting about that game. The Giants' average depth of target did increase. They were more vertical. The offense was a lot more vertical. Freddie Kitchens had a lot more vertical passing concepts called on that game than Jason Garrett typically does on any given Sunday. So Freddie Kitchens automatically was just more aggressive, wanted to go downfield more frequently, wanted to open up the more vertical part of that offense. And I thought that was interesting, especially with the backup quarterback in there, because usually you don't rely on a guy like Case Keenum to throw the ball downfield too much. But Freddie Kitchens wanted to push the ball downfield, or at least wanted to open things up with vertical passing concepts to open up the intermediate passing game. So I thought that was interesting, and that's very well documented throughout Freddie Kitchens' career, coming from a Bruce Arians offense that loves to throw the ball downfield. Freddie Kitchens has roots in Bruce Arians' 11 personnel vertical attack offense. That's the description that they had, and I even have a really great statistic to describe how he really improves the quarterback's ability to go downfield. So in 2018, when the Cleveland Browns drafted Baker Mayfield, his rookie season, Todd Haley was the offensive coordinator of the Browns for a few games. He didn't last long. he was fired because Baker Mayfield's yards per attempt was 6.8, very, very low. That's extremely low, like almost unrealistically low for Baker Mayfield's yards per attempt to be at 6.8. So that's where Todd Haley had him at, and that offense was struggling really badly. Freddie Kitchens was then promoted into the interim offensive coordinator role. Of course, we know he did such a good job there that he ended up winning the head coach position the following season, but Baker Mayfield's yards per attempt from Todd Haley's 6.8 went up to 9.1 yards per attempt under Freddie Kitchens using his Bruce Arians 11 personnel vertical attack. Thought that was super, super interesting just to see how much of a difference an offensive coordinator change can make for a quarterback in terms of how frequently they throw the ball downfield. And Freddie Kitchens loves to get his quarterbacks throwing the ball downfield. So I think that him moving into the senior offensive assistant position, as Freddie Kitchens has, he's going to have, as a senior offensive assistant, he's going to be assisting his offensive coordinator pretty frequently, so he's going to have a lot more of a say in the playbook and the schemes that Jason Garrett is implementing into the Giants offense in 2021, and I think that's pretty exciting. Giants fans, what's your biggest complaint from Jason Garrett's offense this past season? He didn't go vertical enough. They barely pushed the ball downfield. I think Daniel Jones had, 43 deep passing attempts this past season, which was down from his rookie season in which he played less games. Insane statistic. But he was one of the top 5 best deep ball passers in the NFL. Next Gen Stats had him as the number 1 best deep ball passer in the NFL. Number 1 was Daniel Jones. Number 3 according to Pro Football Focus. So Daniel Jones knows how to throw the ball downfield. He's really good at it. He's very accurate. But he's not doing it enough under Jason Garrett. But Freddie Kitchens might be able to fix that. Him and his tendency to get quarterbacks throwing the ball downfield more frequently, to have a higher yard per attempt average, I think that's really telling for what Freddie Kitchens likes to do on offense. He loves to have a vertical attack. It's just unfortunate that Jason Garrett is not exactly the same like that. But I think that now that Freddie Kitchens is a senior offensive assistant, he'll have more of a say in the playbook. He'll have more say in the play designs and the vertical concepts, and he'll be able to implement those things more consistently into Jason Garrett's play calling and more consistently into his offense. So I do think there's going to be some scheme-related changes for Jason Garrett. I think that Kitchens' more vertical offense in Cleveland is going to show up here with the Giants now under Jason Garrett, now that Freddie Kitchens is senior offensive assistant. Now I want to bring up some more statistics about average depth of target and about how Freddie Kitchens adjusts that sort of, or affects that sort of thing, rather. Baker Mayfield in 2018, this is his rookie season. By the end of the year, his average depth of target went all the way up to 9.6 yards, which is really, really high for a quarterback. If you look around the league, that's a pretty high average depth of target, and that was under Freddie Kitchens. Year 2, it was again over 9 yards, which is a pretty high threshold to meet. 9.2 yards average depth of target in 2019. 2020, that was when the Cleveland Browns made the change over to Kevin Stefanski. Kevin Stefanski does have Baker Mayfield push the ball downfield, but he also does have him use the intermediate passing range a lot more frequently. That offense is a bit more West Coast in that way. So that went down to 8.8 yards. So he did steadily decline there, and he did make it down underneath 9 yards per attempt, but he still is pushing the ball downfield because Baker Mayfield is inherently a more aggressive quarterback. But he also enjoys more deep passing opportunities through his offensive scheme, or at least he absolutely did in 2018 and 2019. In 2018, he threw 72 deep passes, 20-plus yard attempts. 2019, this is again under Freddie Kitchens, 76 20-plus yard attempts. Very large numbers there, astronomically large numbers there. 2020 with Stefanski, it was reeled back in down to 61 attempts, which is still pretty high, but that's where I'm saying he is an inherently aggressive quarterback. That's his playing style, but he is also playing through the scheme. And the scheme with Freddie Kitchens in 2018 and 2019 was telling him to get the ball downfield a lot. And he's still getting the ball downfield a good amount with Kevin Stefanski, but not as much as he was with Freddie Kitchens. But I want to compare these stats to Daniel Jones because I think that's where you really see a difference and you think this gets really interesting. So, of course, like I mentioned, 9.6 yards, 9.2 yards, and 8.8 yards average depth of target through 2018 to 2020 for Baker Mayfield. Daniel Jones, 2019 average depth of target, well below anywhere that Baker Mayfield has ever been, 8.4. And then in 2020, somehow it got even lower. It got down to 8.0 average depth of target. That's really kind of low. That's not an exciting number to reach. I would like to see the Giants maybe push that number up to an 8.8. I think that's a comfortable range to be in. But the average depth of target at an 8 just means he's throwing a lot of short intermediate passes and he's not getting the ball downfield enough. And that is also demonstrated through his number of attempts downfield. So Daniel Jones in 2019 played in 12 games. He threw 54 deep passing attempts, 20-plus yard attempts. Now, think back to this 2020 season. He missed, I believe it was 2.5 games with injury. So he played in 14 games, and he had 43 deep passing attempts. So he had 11 less 20-plus yard attempts this past season, despite playing in 2.5 more games. That's concerning. That's a really, really big problem for the Giants offense. The fact that Daniel Jones is not being asked to throw the ball downfield despite being one of the most efficient deep ball passers in the NFL. That's a huge red flag for Jason Garrett. That is something that could have had consideration for him maybe being fired this offseason. Of course he wasn't, and of course he's here to stay. But I do think that they notice there are some issues with Jason Garrett and his tendency to keep the ball short and his failure to play to Daniel Jones' strength and have him push the ball downfield. So I think when you look at that, you look at the offense, and then you look at this move that they made to promote Freddie Kitchens, who's known for running a vertical offense, to a senior offensive assistant role. I think that's very telling to where Joe Judge's head is at and how he is trying to get this offense more vertical through the coaches that he has on his staff, using Freddie Kitchens to make that happen. I think that's really important, and I do think that that's going to have a huge impact on Daniel Jones as he enters his third season, especially now that he has a really good group of playmakers around him, including one of the best vertical threats in the NFL in Kenny Golladay. Best believe Freddie Kitchens is going to try and make sure that Jason Garrett gets the ball downfield to Kenny Golladay, and I can't wait to see that happen. So that's what I have to say about Freddie Kitchens affecting Daniel Jones and the deep passing, the vertical passing concepts. But I also have this to say about Freddie Kitchens affecting the offensive line. When Joe Judge made this move, this readjustment of his staff, he did speak about it with the media. And I'm going to read this quote from Joe Judge about Freddie Kitchens. Quote, "His primary responsibility is going to be working with the front," Judge said. "Freddie has coached quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, has worked hand in hand with the offensive line. Again, tying into having two young offensive line coaches with Rob Sale and Ben Wilkerson, both very young coaches, I think Freddie is going to be an asset up front, working directly with them and helping bring together the game planning like all of our coaches will, but working directly with offensive coordinator Jason Garrett with some of the things that are going to happen up front." So what this tells me about Freddie Kitchens, the game planning aspect of it. Freddie Kitchens is going to be working closely with Jason Garrett in terms of the game planning in the offensive scheme, but also with the pass protection scheme, because the Giants clearly had a lot of issues there. A lot of miscommunications on the offensive line, a lot of poor pass protection in general. So clearly the Giants had some issues there, so they're bringing Freddie Kitchens into the senior offensive assistant role, not only to make the offense more vertical, but also to iron out the pass protection schemes. And I think that's a really, really big factor here going forward, or at least it will be. I think that's a key. And I do think it's interesting that his primary responsibility is going to be working with the offensive line. So that's number one for Freddie Kitchens. Help Rob Sale, this young offensive line coach who's never coached in the NFL before. He's only 41 years old and he's only ever coached college football, but I do think that's fitting. My opinion on Rob Sale is that he was the perfect hiring. He's used to coaching collegiate athletes, and our offensive line is full of second and third year players. So I think that's a perfect hiring there. But he does need guidance, and he does need guys like Freddie Kitchens to guide him. And Freddie Kitchens has experience working with the offensive line, and he's also working hand in hand with Jason Garrett and now the offensive line coach. I think that's the perfect bridge to fill that gap right there, where there might be a gap between an OC and an OL coach. I think that perfect senior offensive assistant is the bridge there to fill that gap, and I am really excited about that. So I do think that Freddie Kitchens is going to help us get more vertical, and I do think he's going to help our offensive line improve and develop in 2021. So I don't think we'll have the worst offensive line in the league, though on paper it looks like we just might. I do see this offensive line improving quite a bit and hopefully getting close to league average. That's where I want to see them at. If they can at least get to league average and Daniel Jones can play at a pretty good level with all these playmakers around him, he should. Giants could be a pretty good team and make it to the playoffs. That's at least what I think. So Freddie Kitchens, this move that Joe Judge made on his coaching staff, when I dug into this, as I did all this research, presented it to you guys here, this might be a huge move that people aren't talking about. This really might affect things for the Giants offense this upcoming season. So I'm really excited and grateful that I was able to discuss this with you guys, or at least present this information for you guys. Please let me know down in the comment section below what you think about this. What do you think about Jason Garrett's offense? Do you hate it? Do you like it? Maybe? Unpopular opinion? What do you think about Freddie Kitchens? Do you think he's going to have this impact that I believe he's going to have? And how excited are you for this? How excited are you to watch this new offense that might be more vertical and might have a lot more coaching dedicated towards the offensive line, as I discussed 2 videos ago? So, thank you so much for tuning in. Please leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss a video. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And also go check out Empire Sports Media for a lot more elite written content about the New York Giants and just about every other New York sports team and even the Chicago Bears if you're interested in them. So thank you so much for tuning in. Shout out to all of the members, especially you, Allison. Thank you for this. Much love to all of the members. We really appreciate and love all of your support, as we do for all of our viewers and subscribers. Really appreciate the support. Stay tuned. We have a lot of great stuff coming up. One really, really big event coming up that I'm excited to share with you guys. I just can't do that quite yet, but stay tuned. Have a huge announcement coming soon. So much love. Let's go Giants, and I'll see you in the next one.